First Contact's fallout. The hegemony's diplomatic vessel, Eternal Protocol, emerged from hyperspace with all the grandeur its name suggested. Its sleek crystalline hull, crafted from materials perfected over 10,000 years of spacefaring civilization, caught Earth's sunlight and scattered it in precise, mathematically perfect patterns. High Emissary Valthor stood on the bridge, his features arranged in the expression of benevolent superiority that had been carefully cultivated through centuries of first contact procedures. Initiate standard greeting protocols, Valthor commanded, his voice carrying the weight of countless successful planetary incorporations. The hegemony had perfected first contact down to an art form, a precise science of cultural domination disguised as diplomatic outreach. But something was wrong. The humans weren't following the script. Instead of the expected mix of fear and awe, the first transmission they received was casual, almost cheerful. Welcome to Sol. You've reached Earth's First Contact Division. I'm Director Sarah Chen. Love what you've done with your ship's hull. Very sparkly. Would you like to dock at our friendship station, or should we come to you? Valthor's secondary heart skipped a beat. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Where was the stunned silence? The panicked military responses? The hurried diplomatic scrambling? We are the hegemony, he announced, falling back on thousand-year-old protocols. We come to offer you the privilege of incorporation into our... Oh, the hegemony. Director Chen interrupted, her tone suggesting she was grinning. We've been wondering when you'd show up. We've got a welcome package prepared and everything. Though I should warn you, our legal team is going to want to review any incorporation paperwork. They're kind of sticklers about the fine print. The bridge crew of the Eternal Protocol exchanged confused glances. Valthor felt his carefully maintained composure cracking. You prepared for us? Well, not you specifically, Chen replied. But we figured someone would show up eventually. Humanity's been imagining first contact scenarios for centuries. We've probably thought up every possible way this could go. Speaking of which, you're not planning on that whole submit or be destroyed thing, are you? Because I got to tell you, that's a bit cliché. Valthor's third heart joined his secondary one in arrhythmic protest. This was unprecedented. The humans weren't just failing to follow the protocols. They were completely ignoring them. Worse, they seemed to find them amusing. Director Chen, he managed, struggling to maintain his diplomatic tone. Perhaps you don't understand the gravity of this situation. The hegemony represents over 10,000 years of unified galactic civilization. Our technological superiority is impressive. Chen cut in enthusiastically. That crystal hull of yours. Gorgeous engineering. Though have you considered the maintenance implications? Our engineers are having a field day analyzing it. They've already spotted 3 ways it could be improved. By the way, would you be interested in their findings? Valthor felt a headache building in all 3 of his brain lobes. He gestured to his cultural specialist, who hurriedly pulled up Earth's information. The specialist's eyes widened as he read. High Emissary, the specialist whispered, their entertainment archives. They've been imagining space warfare, alien contacts, and galactic politics for hundreds of years. They have thousands of scenarios, countless strategies, millions of theoretical responses to exactly this situation. Fiction, Valthor dismissed. Fantasy. With respect, High Emissary, they've been practicing this moment for generations. Through their stories, their games, their movies, they've been preparing responses to every possible first contact scenario, including ours. The specialist's voice dropped even lower. And sir, they've been solving problems we haven't even encountered yet, just for fun. On the view screen, Director Chen was waiting patiently, still smiling. While you're discussing things over there, would anyone like coffee? Tea? We've set up a lovely reception area. Our xenobiologists are eager to ensure we can accommodate your dietary needs. Valthor felt the weight of 10,000 years of hegemony protocol pressing down on him. Everything about this situation was wrong. The humans weren't following any of the expected patterns. They weren't showing proper deference. They weren't even pretending to be impressed by the hegemony's obvious superiority. Instead, they were offering hospitality, suggesting engineering improvements, talking about legal reviews and dietary accommodations, acting as if the arrival of an ancient galactic civilization was nothing more extraordinary than a scheduled diplomatic visit. High Emissary, his tactical officer, spoke up. I'm detecting numerous satellites and orbital installations around their planet. Many appear to be defensive in nature. How many? Valthor asked. I can't tell, sir. They're using some kind of technology we've never encountered. Every time I think I've counted them all, more seem to appear. Director Chen's voice came through again, still friendly but with a hint of something else. Something that made Valthor's primary heart join the others in their arrhythmic protest. I don't mean to rush you, but those defensive platforms get a bit twitchy when ships hover in place too long. Nothing personal, just standard protocol. So, what'll it be? Docking or shuttle? Valthor looked at his crew, at their confused and worried expressions, then back at the human on the screen who was treating the most significant moment in her species' history as if it were a routine meeting. He paused, 10,000 years of protocol warring with the unprecedented situation before him. We would be honored to dock at your friendship station. Wonderful, Chen beamed. Fair warning. Our artificial gravity might feel a bit strange to you. We recently upgraded to a new system. Actually, we'd love your feedback on it. Oh, and don't mind the construction. We're always expanding. Humanity gets fidgety if we're not building something. As the Eternal Protocol followed the transmitted coordinates, Valthor realized with growing unease that the hegemony's first contact protocols had failed to account for one crucial possibility. A species that had spent centuries enthusiastically preparing for this exact moment, not through military might or technological advancement alone, but through something far more powerful, imagination. And as they approached the massive, ever-growing structure that was Earth's friendship station, Valthor couldn't shake the feeling that the hegemony's carefully maintained position of superiority had just suffered its first crack in 10,000 years. The weight of arrogance. Grand Admiral Xenver of the Hegemony First Fleet stood before the High Council, his posture rigid with contained fury. The holographic displays around him showed the complete failure of their standard incorporation protocols with the humans. 3 cycles had passed since High Emissary Valthor's unprecedented report, and the situation had only grown more concerning. They're collecting our technology, Xenver reported, his voice tight with controlled anger. Not stealing it. They're trading for it, offering innovations we never considered in exchange for what we thought were state secrets. Worse, they're improving it. The council chamber filled with murmurs of disbelief. Supreme Counselor Zeratel raised a hand for silence. Impossible. Our technology represents the pinnacle of galactic achievement. Xenver activated a holographic display. This is their improved version of our quantum communications array. They called it a weekend project. Their engineers said they were bored and decided to tinker with it. It's 30% more efficient than our original design. How? The word escaped Zaratel's lips before she could maintain her composure. They said, and I quote, "We just thought about it differently." They approach problems like children with new toys, taking them apart, reassembling them in ways that shouldn't work, but somehow do. They have no respect for established principles. Another counselor spoke up. Surely this is an isolated incident. Xenver's expression darkened. No, they're doing this with everything. Their friendship station has doubled in size. They're incorporating technology from every trading species that visits them, creating hybrid systems that shouldn't be possible. And they keep asking questions. Endless questions. He brought up another display, this one showing human ships under construction. They're building their own fleet now, not copying our designs, creating entirely new ones. They say they're exploratory vessels, But our analysts can't even begin to understand their capabilities. They're using principles we've never seen before. Then perhaps, Supreme Counselor Zeratel said slowly, it's time to remind them of their place in the Galactic Order. Xenver had been waiting for this. The First Fleet stands ready. We've assembled our most powerful battle group. The humans have gone too far, too fast. They need to be contained before they destabilize the entire sector. The Council's approval was swift and unanimous. The hegemony had maintained order for 10,000 years. They would not let one upstart species disrupt that legacy. 3 days later, the First Fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. 500 ships, representing the pinnacle of hegemony military might. Xenver stood on his command bridge, ready to deliver the ultimatum that would bring humanity to heel. But the humans weren't there. The Friendship Station orbited Earth, seemingly abandoned. No traffic, no communications, no signs of the bustling activity that had marked it just days before. Full scan, Xenver ordered, unease creeping into his voice. Sir, his sensor officer reported, confusion evident in his tone. We're detecting nothing. Impossible. A civilization doesn't just disappear. No, sir, you don't understand. We're detecting nothing. As in, our sensors aren't registering anything. Not even normal space background radiation. Xenver felt his heart skip in sequence. How? The void erupted. Ships appeared everywhere, emerging from what his sensors still insisted was empty space. Not the exploratory vessels they'd seen under construction, but warships, sleek, deadly, and unlike anything the hegemony had ever encountered. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Fleet. A familiar voice transmitted across all frequencies. The same Sarah Chen who had first greeted the hegemony as a mere director. I have to admit, she continued, her tone conversational, we were hoping it wouldn't come to this. We really did want to be friends. But we've read enough science fiction to know how this usually goes, so we prepared. Those exploratory vessels you saw us building. Decoys. Pretty ones, though, weren't they? Xenver found his voice. You dare. Oh, we dare, Chen interrupted. See, while you were watching us build pretty ships and asking questions about our primitive technology, we were learning, analyzing, preparing. Those improvements we shared with you. The ones you thought were impressive. Those were from our archives, solved problems from centuries ago. We wanted to see how you'd react. The human ships moved with impossible precision, weaving a complex net around the hegemony fleet. Xenver's tactical display tried to track them and failed, the movements defying known laws of physics. You have 1 hour to leave the system, Chen stated firmly. We'll even let you keep those technological improvements we shared. Consider them a parting gift, and a reminder that humanity values friendship, but we do not submit. Not to anyone. You cannot believe you can stand against the full might of the hegemony, Xenver declared, but his voice lacked conviction. Chen's reply carried a smile he could hear. We've been imagining how to fight galaxy-spanning empires since before we reached space. Every possible scenario, every potential technology, every conceivable strategy. We've been thinking about them all for centuries, and you know what we learned. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice carried the weight of humanity's long preparation for this moment. The greatest weakness of any empire is believing they've reached the pinnacle of achievement, that no one could possibly surprise them anymore. You stopped imagining new possibilities 10,000 years ago. We never did. Xenver looked at his fleet, the pride of the hegemony, surrounded by ships that his most advanced sensors couldn't even properly detect. Ships that represented not just technology, but the power of endless human imagination turned toward a single purpose. For the first time in 10,000 years, the hegemony faced not just a military challenge, but a civilization that had spent its entire existence preparing for this moment through the most powerful force in the universe. The ability to ask, what if? The art of impossible. The emergency session of the Hegemony High Council bore little resemblance to its usual ordered proceedings. Voices overlapped and barely contained panic as the latest reports from the Sol system displayed above the chamber. Grand Admiral Xenver's fleet hadn't just retreated, it had been systematically dismantled. "They let us leave," Xenver reported, his voice hollow. "They could have destroyed us at any time. Instead, they demonstrated." The holographic display showed a human ship, if it could even be called that, passing through one of the hegemony's most advanced warships as if it were mist, not destroying it, simply proving it could. The recording ended with the human vessel returning to what sensors still insisted was empty space. "Their technology defies comprehension," the science minister declared. "We've analyzed the data from every encounter. They're utilizing principles that should be impossible, quantum states that shouldn't be stable, physics that contradicts everything we know." Supreme Counselor Zeratel's voice cut through the chaos. How did they advance so far without our detection?" A new figure stepped forward, the hegemony's chief archivist, ancient even by their standards. "Because we stopped looking up." The chamber fell silent. "For 10,000 years, the archivist continued, we've looked down at younger species. Analyzed them for threats, yes, but always from a position of assumed superiority. We never considered." He paused, struggling with the concept. "We never considered they might simply think differently." He gestured, and new displays appeared, human entertainment archives. "Look at these. While we were perfecting what we knew, they were imagining what could be. Every story, every game, every piece of fiction. They were all thought experiments. Millions of minds considering infinite possibilities. Stories." Zyratel's tone was incredulous. "You're saying they defeated our most advanced fleet because of stories?" "No," the archivist corrected. "They defeated us because they never accepted limitations. Their stories led to theories. Theories led to experiments. Experiments led to technologies we never imagined because we stopped imagining." The chamber erupted again, but fell silent as a new transmission cut through their secure channels. Admiral Chen's face appeared above them. "Hope you don't mind the interruption," she said pleasantly. "Your encryption was impressive, but well, let's just say we had some interesting ideas about quantum entanglement." The council stood frozen as Chen continued. "We've been monitoring your discussions, and I thought it might be time for some clarity. Your archivist is partially right. Stories helped us get here, but there's something more fundamental you're missing." She smiled, but there was steel beneath it. "Humans don't just imagine possibilities. We challenge impossibilities. Every time someone has told us something can't be done, we've taken it as a personal challenge. Impossible isn't a barrier to us, it's an invitation." New displays appeared, showing human ships emerging from what looked like tears in space itself. "You saw our ships phase through matter. That started because someone asked, why can't we walk through walls? You noticed we can hide from your sensors. That began with a child asking why we can't turn invisible. Your civilization spent 10,000 years perfecting what you knew," Chen continued. "We spent our time asking questions you never thought to ask. Like, why does space need to be empty? Why can't we fold gravity? What if light could think?" The council chamber was dead silent now, every member watching as human vessels performed maneuvers that their most advanced physics said were impossible. "Right now," Chen said, "you're thinking about mounting a larger attack, bringing in your other fleets, teaching us a lesson about defying the hegemony. I'm here to tell you, don't. Not because we'll destroy you, but because you'll destroy yourselves." She leaned forward. "Your civilization is built on the assumption that you've reached the peak of possibility, that there's nothing left to discover, only to perfect. The moment you attack us with everything you have, and fail, which you will, that assumption shatters, and with it, your entire society. You're asking us to accept defeat." Zyratel found her voice. "No," Chen corrected. "We're offering you something far more valuable than victory. We're offering you the chance to learn how to imagine again. The displays shifted, showing the friendship station. Our doors remain open, not for submission, not for incorporation, but for collaboration. You have 10,000 years of perfection. We have endless questions and impossible dreams. Together, she smiled, we could do something truly impossible, create a future neither of us could imagine alone. As the transmission ended, the council chamber remained silent. The archivist looked at the frozen images of human ships doing the impossible and felt something he hadn't experienced in millennia. Wonder. Perhaps, he said softly, it's time we learned to look up again. Pride and protocols. The hegemony's grand archive was ancient, a vast repository of knowledge collected over 10,000 years of galactic dominance. Yet for the first time in living memory, its pristine order had been disrupted. Archivists scurried through the towering data stacks, pulling records that hadn't been accessed in millennia. In the center of this unprecedented chaos stood Supreme Counselor Ziratel, watching as the chief archivist directed the search. You're certain about this? The ancient administrator nodded, his eyes bright with an enthusiasm that made him seem centuries younger. We've found references in our earliest records. Before the standardization, before the protocols, we used to be like them. He gestured to a holographic display showing humanity's technological progression. Look at their pattern of development. Chaotic, inefficient, filled with false starts and abandoned paths, exactly like our own ancient history. Before we found the better way, Ziratel reminded him. Before we learned to perfect rather than experiment. Did we learn? The archivist's question hung in the air. Or did we just stop? A junior archivist rushed up, practically vibrating with excitement. We found it. In the restricted archives. The records from before the Great Standardization. The holographic display shifted, showing ancient hegemony ships. Ships that bore little resemblance to their modern, standardized descendants. Ships that looked, Ziratel realized with a shock, almost human in their variety and innovation. We were them, the chief archivist whispered. 10,000 years ago, we were them. And then, we chose stability, Ziratel finished. We chose perfection over possibility. And now they're offering us a chance to remember how to dream. The archivist turned to her. The council vote is in an hour. What will you recommend? Before she could answer, a new alert flashed across the displays. Multiple hegemony battle fleets were converging on the Sol system, led by hardline admirals who refused to accept the humans' offer. They intended to prove that 10,000 years of perfection couldn't be overcome by mere innovation. At that same moment, in Earth orbit, Admiral Sarah Chen received the warning from their long-range sensors. She stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Force flagship Impossible Dream, watching the tactical display with an expression of resigned disappointment. They're really going to make us do this, she sighed. Humanity's first major galactic intervention, and it's going to be saving an empire from itself. Her XO raised an eyebrow. Are we calling it an intervention, sir? I thought this was Operation Imagination Reboot. Chen laughed. I still can't believe that name won the vote. She sobered quickly. Deploy the fleet. But remember, minimal force, maximum demonstration. We're not here to destroy their ships. We're here to blow their minds. Across Earth's orbital space, human vessels shimmered into visibility. But these weren't the ships that had faced down Senver's fleet. These were something new, something that made the laws of physics throw up their hands and walk away in disgust. Ships that were there and not there, existing in multiple spaces simultaneously. Vessels that seemed to be built from solid light, their forms constantly shifting. Craft that moved by convincing space itself to relocate them. Begin Operation Imagination Reboot, Chen ordered. And someone please tell Dr. Rodriguez that yes, we're actually using his quantum ballet formation. He's going to be insufferable about this. As the hegemony fleets emerged from hyperspace, they found themselves facing not an enemy armada, but an art installation made of impossibilities. Human ships danced through space in patterns that made geometry question its life choices. Energy fields that shouldn't exist painted pictures across the void. And in the hegemony's grand archive, Zyratel watched it all through their long-range sensors. She saw her civilization's most powerful weapons fire, and their shots curve away in elegant spirals, transformed into streaks of harmless light that joined the cosmic dance. She saw human ships phase through hegemony vessels, leaving behind not destruction but modifications, subtle improvements to engines, shields, and systems. Changes that showed not just technological superiority, but a fundamental understanding of hegemony technology that went beyond their own. They're not defeating us. The chief archivist breathed. They're teaching us. Zyratel nodded slowly. No ultimatums, no demands, just showing us what's possible when you never stop asking what if. She straightened, her decision made. Send word to the council. I'm changing my recommendation. We're not going to fight the humans. We're going to learn from them, the archivist asked hopefully. No, Zyratel corrected, watching as human ships continued their impossible dance. We're going to remember how to be like them, how to be like we used to be, how to dream again. In Earth orbit, Admiral Chen watched as the hegemony fleet stood down. A transmission came through, not from a military commander, but from Supreme Counselor Zyratel herself. Admiral Chen, the counselor's voice carried the weight of 10,000 years and the hope of thousands more to come. Humanity's offer of collaboration, does it still stand? Chen smiled. Counselor, let me tell you about a concept we have called brainstorming. I think you're going to love it. Dreams reborn. One standard galactic year later, the Friendship Station had become something unprecedented in the history of known space. Its crystalline spires now stretched for kilometers, but it wasn't the station's size that made it remarkable. It was what happened inside. In a vast chamber originally designed for diplomatic functions, now converted into what humans called a think tank, High Emissary Valthor stood before a mixed group of human and hegemony scientists. The same Valthor who had once arrived expecting to incorporate Earth into the Empire now served as the chief liaison between the two civilizations. So, he said, looking at the holographic display of their latest joint project, you're suggesting we try to communicate with light itself. Dr. Sarah Martinez, the human physicist leading the project, grinned. Why not? We figured out how to make it think, remember? The next logical step is to ask it what it wants to talk about. A young hegemony researcher raised her hand, a human gesture that had become common among the joint teams. But light doesn't have consciousness. It's just a quantum phenomenon. Says who? Martins challenged. 100 years ago, we thought quantum states couldn't be maintained at macro scales. Now look at us. We build ships out of stable quantum superpositions, all because someone asked why not. Valthor watched the exchange with barely contained amusement. A year ago, such a discussion would have been unthinkable. Hegemony scientists didn't question established principles. They didn't propose impossible things. They didn't dream. But now, the chamber was filled with the energy of unbridled imagination. Hegemony and human scientists crowded around displays, arguing cheerfully about the nature of reality. Engineers from both species collaborated on projects that defied classification. And everywhere, on every screen and notepad, the same phrase appeared over and over. What if? In Earth orbit, Admiral Chen, now Director of Joint Operations, stood with Supreme Counselor Zyratel aboard the latest vessel to emerge from their combined shipyards. It wasn't a warship or an exploratory vessel, but something entirely new, a ship designed to chase dreams. The Possibility Engine. Zyratel read the name displayed on the hull. Your people have a gift for evocative names. Chen smiled. Well, we couldn't very well call it Experimental Vehicle Testing Platform Alpha, could we? Though I have to admit, your people's taste for precise classification has helped us organize our chaos. The ship before them defied traditional description. Its hull shifted between states of matter, its engines worked on principles that were still being written, and its very existence challenged several laws of physics. It was, in every way, impossible, which was exactly why it worked. The latest reports from the outer territories are fascinating, Zyratel commented. Worlds that once feared the hegemony's approach are opening diplomatic channels. They'd heard about this. She gestured to encompass not just the ship, but everything their partnership had created. Turns out, Chen replied, the galaxy was ready for something new. Not conquest, not incorporation, but collaboration. The chance to dream together. In the hegemony's grand archive, now open to researchers from all species, the chief archivist stood in his favorite spot, surrounded by the combined knowledge of two vastly different approaches to understanding the universe. But his attention was fixed on a simple display, the first message ever exchanged between humans and the hegemony. Welcome to Sol. You've reached Earth's first contact division. He smiled, remembering how that simple, cheerful greeting had cracked 10,000 years of certainty, how it had begun the process of teaching an ancient empire to dream again. The junior archivist, human this time, approached with a data crystal. Sir, you might want to see this. The joint research team just submitted their latest findings. They're suggesting. She paused, still uncertain about bringing such radical proposals to the ancient administrator. Yes, he encouraged, his eyes twinkling. What impossible thing are they proposing now? They think they found a way to, well, to talk to time itself. The chief archivist laughed, a sound that would have been shocking a year ago, but now filled the archive's halls regularly. Of course they do. And do you know what the truly wonderful thing is? The junior archivist shook her head. They might actually succeed, because they'll keep trying, keep questioning, keep imagining until they do. And we'll be right there with them, dreaming impossible dreams and making them real. He took the data crystal, already eager to see what impossibility would become reality next. That's the greatest gift humanity gave us, you know. Not their technology, not their methods, but the reminder that the universe isn't finished, that there are always new questions to ask, new dreams to chase. Above Earth, the possibility engine prepared for its first flight. Its mission was simple yet profound, to seek out new questions, to imagine new answers, and to prove that when civilizations dare to dream together, nothing is truly impossible. As the ship engaged its reality-bending drives, a final transmission was broadcast to the assembled fleet of human and hegemony vessels. Attention all ships. This is Director Chen. The possibility engine is about to attempt its first dimensional shift. For those wondering about the safety protocols, well, we've imagined several exciting worst-case scenarios and prepared for all of them. And probably a few we haven't thought of yet. But that's the fun part, isn't it? After all, if we knew exactly what was going to happen, what would be the point of dreaming? The ship vanished in a display that made several fundamental constants of the universe throw up their hands in exasperation. And in its wake, human and hegemony crews cheered together, united in the greatest adventure of all, the pursuit of impossible dreams.